Welcome to the Writer Dojo with your host, Steve Diamond
That's me.
and Larry Correia.
Hola.
Today's episode, Resolutions.
Everybody, we are back. We are back. And I'm going to use a joke I used before. We're back like Backstreet. You know, I never understood that, Larry, because that was in their first album. I never understood how they could be back.
I kind of missed out on that. I was never really on the teen heartthrob bandwagon.
I was so dreamy.
No, so welcome back to we are now season 2 of Writer Dojo.
That's right.
So it's this is going to air right after the new year. We were recording this right before the new year. This episode is brought to you by my daughter wrecking a car, so I had to drive her to work. So we went ahead and got together while I was in town.
She's safe, by the way. Everything's fine.
She's fine, but black
the
ice,
car did
people.
not.
Black ice is dangerous.
Yeah. Oof. All right, Larry. Happy New Year to you. I hope you had a good Christmas. I know I did.
Yeah, it was great. Happy New Year to all the supporters and fans. Before we get going on this episode, new season. Last season was a success. We learned a lot as we went.
Yeah.
We figured out technical difficulties as we went.
Yeah, we learned that Steve should never be allowed to edit anything.
Big thanks to producer Jack, because we discovered just how important he was when he was out almost dead with COVID. For a few weeks there, we tried to get by without him, and
No, I was bad at that job, Larry.
yeah, we sucked. And a special thanks to Craig Nybo, who is letting us use his studio.
Yep.
Craig is awesome.
Yeah,
And,
Craig's great. He's been a big help to us. He comes in and makes sure that we don't sound super sucky when we get into the booth.
Yeah, so major props to those two guys, because without them, this would not exist. Steve and I talked about this project for years and years before we ever actually did it, and so the fact we got one season knocked out was entirely because of those guys helping us.
All right, Larry, it's New Year's, which means we have to do the thing that everybody does, Larry. It's rule.
Yep,
New Year's resolutions, baby.
it's New Year's resolution time. Writer perspective.
That's right.
So what we want to do this year is we want to talk a little bit about what we have done this year and how as writers you set goals for yourself. And also we have good real life examples from the two of us of how you set the most realistic goals you can of things you want to accomplish as a writer, but you don't always accomplish them. And when you don't, you learn from it, but you don't beat yourself up.
Or in my case, you just beat yourself up anyway.
Yeah. So as far as New Year's resolutions from last year and the goals we set, Steve got his butt kicked. 2021 kicked Steve's butt.
Yeah. Let me give you the brief summary. So, let's see. I got into 2021. I'd been at my new job for a year, and things were going okay. And then, for quite a while into 2021, things were going pretty smooth. And then on about January 2nd of 2021, everything went poorly. So it didn't actually take that long. My shoulder started feeling like garbage, and everything was bad. Now, before I had surgery in June, a couple good things happened. And that was I finished the draft of Servants of War. That was good. And mainly that was because I think Jim Mintz threatened to come and murder me.
Yeah, we were up against a pretty hard deadline on that one.
Yeah.
And it's bad when the editor comes to you and goes, "Hey, where's my manuscript? I need it like right now. If you guys want to have an e-arc, I need a manuscript ASAP."
Yeah. So I did that. That was cool.
Oh yeah, it came out
And
really
then,
good.
and then I realized I had to have shoulder surgery. And that was conveniently a couple days after I was supposed to participate in our shooting class, Larry.
Yeah, we did a big well, it wasn't all writers, but it was about half writers. We did a big shooting extravaganza at my place this year. Steve,
I lasted like 2 mags.
yeah.
And then my shoulder swelled up so hard I couldn't even lift my arm.
Yeah, we had a guy who was a special forces medic, was taking care of the medical stuff.
Yeah.
And he talked to Steve for like a couple minutes. He's like, "No, dude,
Yeah. It was rough.
you need to stop."
So the recovery from that was garbage and horrible. And then a little bit later, getting into, I think it was into late September-ish, my arm just wasn't healing. It just sucked. And right around that time is when the final edits basically the big edits came back for Servants of War.
Yep.
I did most of those in the evenings while I was on vacation.
And this is about the same time we filmed recorded a whole bunch of episodes of this podcast.
That's
that
right.
we had started right before that.
Yeah, so we were slammed. Got all that done, came back, and then discovered I had to have surgery again. So this is news for a lot of people. I had to have a second shoulder surgery to basically clear out all the scar tissue and everything in my shoulder. They knock you out. They windmill your arm while you're unconscious. And I guess you can hear, well, for me anyway, they could hear the sound of all the scar tissue popping and breaking, like in the entire room.
That's gross.
Yeah. And then they cut in, burn it all out. And then you wake up. And that first day when you wake up, that was the worst pain I've been in my entire life.
Now, how did that affect your writing goals for that time period?
Yeah, it's a good thing I did I got the draft of Servants of War done earlier in the year, because I got nothing done.
Yeah, well, then the last few months of the year, too, you got completely hammered.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of work stuff going on. The company that I'm part of had some investment, some private equity investment people come in and just drop a ton load of money on us.
Yeah, so you guys know Steve as a writer, but his day job, he's a finance guy. He's the head accountant for a company.
Yeah, I'm the controller for a software company. So I'm in charge of all finance and all HR.
Yeah, so when I say he got his butt kicked, he was working like 70 hours a week.
Yeah, so that pretty much ruined me. And it literally isn't until last week that I started being able to live again.
Which is why we were recording tonight.
Seriously, my daughter made me so sad. I was working so many hours. She came over to me right after it was like 2 days before Christmas. She goes, "Dad, are you going to be home for Christmas?" Oh man, I just about died.
Oh, right in the feels,
I
man.
know.
I know that feeling right there.
I'm going, like that's the question that you see on all of it's like the stereotypical question on all the like Hallmark movies. Like the bad dad that's never home. His daughter asks him, like,
"You're the bad guy.
Like, when are you going to come home?" I'm like, "Oh man, I only write bad guys. I'm not supposed to be one."
Yeah. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. No.
So it's rough. Like,
think about it though. What were the goals that you set at the beginning of the year? So going into 2021, what were you planning on doing?
So my goals going into 2021 were, I did want to finish Servants of War. That was on my goals. So, I actually checked that one off, pat myself on the back. Well, I would, but I can't. Yeah. My shoulder doesn't reach that far back anymore. But that was one of the main goals. The other goal was to finish the edits of the sequel to Residue, which did not happen.
Yeah.
And then another one was I wanted to have half of Werewolf Cop written, and that totally didn't happen.
So do you go in when you do this, do you have project in mind is the goal, or do you do it by word count over time?
Project.
Yeah.
Because for me, since I'm a discovery writer, it's all kind of like the word count doesn't really matter to me that much.
It's harder to pin down what you're going to have.
Mm-hmm. Now for young adult, I know that my young adult novels, it's funny. Like I don't plan them at all really, but they end up at 70,000 words almost on the dot.
Which is kind of like the low end of ideal for YA, right?
For YA, that's golden.
That's golden?
Like that's the perfect, like between 60 and 70 is considered perfect.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where I was at.
Yeah, because for my stuff, it usually comes in about 120,000 a book, with 140, 150 being, the top end.
Right.
And I've done a few that are 200, 200K. Now, the problem with those is they do take longer to produce, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so you set some pretty lofty goals. Basically, you had the goal for about 2 books once you factor in the overall percentages
between edits and a book and a half plus edits. I actually had to do edits on a novella that I was writing for someone. It was a project for Dan Wells. I don't know if that's actually going to happen now though. The novella was written, but me and another guy, Dan Smythe.
Yeah.
We wrote that. Guy. Yeah. We wrote that novella together. It's like 15,000 words. It turned out really, really well. but we're just not sure if it's actually going to go anywhere. If it's going to get picked up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. We're actually okay with that.
Is this the one that you told me about with the?
This is Samurai 7 in space.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
But like cyberpunk horror version because it's me.
Yeah, cool. Basically, any project you give Steve, just you're going to go ahead and tack horror on.
Yeah.
That's just going to be a given.
Oh yeah, that's what I do.
Now, okay, so my goals, so going into 2021, 2020 sucked for me, like it did for a lot of people, but we also had, my wife had cancer in 2020, so we also had the 1-2 punch of, she's fine, by the way, guys, she's fine now. But we had the 1-2 punch of that, and it just kind of made 2020 probably the least productive year I've had in a very long time. As far as just not a lot of energy, not a lot of excitement. I still actually got quite a bit of stuff done wrote about a book and a half. So going into 2021, I set goals. I wanted to do about 2.5 books.
Right.
Was what I was shooting for. And actually I did okay.
I was going to say I think you basically got there.
Pretty close. So I had a few. So basically 90% of Monster Hunter Bloodlines was written in 2021 because I started that in 2020, but that was the project I was trying to get going on when everything in the world was just crap. So moved into 2021, knocked that out, had the book tour for that, and I want to say July or August, I think August. So first part of the year, I did Monster Hunter Bloodlines, got that done. Then I did,
I think it was ours.
I moved into, the one with, Steve called Servants of War, which will be out in,
I think it's March 1st.
March 1st.
Yeah. At least that's what Amazon says.
Yeah.
And I believe everything Amazon says, Larry.
And then I had a couple things, little things pop up in the year that actually kind of messed with my writing schedule, but it came out really good. I did a couple short stories too, because I always do a couple short stories between every book.
Yeah, palate cleanser.
For different anthologies and whatnot. However, I did a project that's kind of weird. I did a project called Lost Planet Homicide for Audible.
I love that.
That was 2021 also. First part, I squeezed that in, and it's just a novella, but it came out really good. And I actually am squeezing in the second one of those now here at the end of the year. And I'm almost done with it. I just need to write the final fight scene.
Nice.
But that one did really good. It was really popular, really well received. It's free on Audible.
Oh, good. I look forward to reading that one here.
Yeah, and actually, I'll send it to you. It's pretty cool. It's more gritty space cop.
Well, yeah.
I tell you, the challenges for novellas I'm finding is a short story. You go in, you only have a little bit of room to work, and so you go in, boom, boom, and you're done, right? And if you leave things hanging, you leave them hanging. A novella gives you just enough extra room to hang yourself. You know what I mean? Where you overpromise and underdeliver. Don't do that. You want to underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah.
But I'm working on that right now. And then I also had pop up this year I have announced that there's another Monster Hunter coming out with a Monster Hunter Memoirs called Monster Hunter Memoirs Fever with Jason Cordova.
Yeah. And
we went ahead and I started work on that. And then I also started work on, and I did the first few chapters of the 4th book of the Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. Well, actually, about the first act of that. And I started that, and it's number 4 is called Tower of Silence is the working title. And that's a 5-book series, really popular.
For now.
Yeah. It's going to be a 5-book series.
This is what Robert Jordan said later.
Yeah, well, this story is a 5-book series. I'm not going to go down the Robert Jordan path
answer.
Where someone's going to have to finish this after I die 18 books in. The way Monster Hunter's going, I better live a while because that series just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I actually came fairly close to my production goal. I probably didn't get the overall word count I was hoping for.
I was going to say, you measure in word count, right?
I do, yeah. So for me, I have a goal of 10,000 words a week when I'm writing.
Right.
Now, obviously, so I can't do 500,000 words a year because you're not writing every week. Because you got editing time, you got downtime, you got book tour time. There's all this other stuff. Theoretically, vacations. Some people do that. I don't know. I mean, I've done that twice.
I'm not sure what that is
in my life, but
all my PTO is for shoulder surgeries this year. That was my vacation.
I think my oldest daughter was 19 before my family went on a vacation together. You know what I mean? So, but overall for the year, I did get pretty close to the goal that I set going in.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. Man, I look at it and I think, I think one of the things that we always talk about is how to be prolific. Half the really, really successful authors that we see, not the ones that hit lightning in a bottle, right? I don't want to talk about them. They're aberrations. Yeah,
and a lot of those guys don't harness that lightning in the bottle. They get the lightning and then boom, they're flash and then they're
right.
done.
But I think of the U's. Brandon wasn't lightning in a bottle when he started.
Oh no, he ground out for years.
He ground out, and he produces, and even now that he's doing exceptionally well.
Yeah, he did Elantris and Mistborn before he got the
right.
The Robert Jordan deal. Yeah. And to be fair, that Robin Jordan deal basically tacked like an additional 20 years of XP onto his campaign. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So that was huge for him.
He found some XP exploit in there.
Yeah, so most of us don't get an opportunity like that. But if you do, by golly, grab on with both hands,
and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And that's my point is there's so many people that, they set expectations for themselves and they set goals for themselves. And a lot of times sometimes they get them and that's great. Sometimes they fall just a little short and that's okay too. Sometimes they just completely miss the boat, which was me in 2020, and 2019. It's been a long few years, Larry.
Yes, it has.
You know the whole story.
Oh, I do.
So, what I want to do is I want to go to break, and then we come back. I want to talk about managing the expectations and what that means, because it means very different things for very different people, I think. The goals that I have for myself and the way I manage them are different than the goals you have for yourself and the way you manage them.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We'll talk about that when we come back, and also kind of like give some people some ideas of like what's realistic for them.
Yeah.
At the stage of being a writer that they are.
Yep, I think so. All right, so we'll be right back and enjoy this message from our adorable sponsors.
A half-century-old curse lies over the small community of Bridgewater ever since Sarah Chase died in a car accident during a teen angst-driven game of chicken back in 1962. She perished in the backseat of a 1961 Impala, accompanied by a group of boys who called themselves the Big Four. She screamed as the car careened through a guardrail and plunged into the icy river water beneath. The 4 boys survived. Sarah did not. Teenagers still race and party at the Milvian Bridge where Sarah's car went over, especially on the anniversary of her death, in hopes of catching a glimpse of her unsettled ghost. But the partying teenagers of Bridgewater don't know that in life Sarah belonged to a group of teenage girls who practiced witchcraft. They don't know that Sarah seeks to use her powers from the grave to avenge her unrequited vendetta. They don't know that Stan Corliss, the driver of the Impala that terrible night and the unpronounced protector of Bridgewater, has passed away, freeing Sarah to unleash her anger. Dead Girl by Craig Nybo is available on Amazon and is free for Kindle Unlimited subscribers. Pick up your copy today.
And we are back.
To season 2 of WriterDojo.
That's right, season 2. And in between season 1 and 2, rest assured, people, no sharks ate me.
I know, it's close. That's what the real reason, Steve doesn't tell people, the real reason he lives at like 5,000 feet above sea level in the mountains, sharks.
That's right.
Yeah. He'll lie and tell you it's like job opportunity or whatever. No, it's sharks. Really.
No, the chances of me being eaten by a shark at high altitude are slightly less than elsewhere.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. He avoids all bodies of water.
You have no idea how many like shark-related messages I get these days.
If you read Son of the Black Sword, for those of you that read Son of the Black Sword, I have like in the mythologist world where people avoid water deeper than you can see your feet.
Yeah, that's like Tuesday for me.
Because of demons. But in Steve, that's just normal. That's just how puddles.
Sharks are demons. It's the same thing. Oceans, swimming pools, large puddles.
That was a
hilarious
episode. I don't know how we're going to do that for Halloween next year.
Me neither.
So we were talking about setting realistic goals for ourselves, right, and then not beating ourselves up. I see a lot of writers will set really super unrealistic goals.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That are
and frankly, I'm guilty of this myself. I always have the best intentions.
And good intention is important, and having a work ethic and lofty goals is great, as long as you don't kill yourself trying to reach the unachievable.
Why are you staring at me so hard?
Hey, I can't say that because I've averaged 2 books a year for 12 years now.
Man, that's impressive. That's impressive.
Well, I say that, but some of these indie guys, they're doing, to be fair, they're doing shorter novels, but some of these guys are doing 8 books a year.
That's crazy. I can't even fathom.
But then again, they're in a position, they're in a difficult position because their business is kind of expecting 6 or 8 books a year, and they're cranking them out, and they're shorter novels. But the problem for those guys is when you do that, you don't allow yourself a lot of revision time. So those guys, they got to make the best shot they can and then just go. So it's it's a different mindset, different business model. So those guys are setting pretty lofty goals.
Right.
So once again, so you got to kind of like look at your business and the specifics of where you're at. And if you're starting out, guys, and you don't have a business model yet, you need to pick out which one you're going to be on. Because some of these guys making big money in indie are doing the pulp style, just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, almost more serialized fiction.
Yeah, or they're doing like I've seen
Real
40,000 word novels every couple months.
Kind of your Louis L'Amour sized.
Yeah. And so if they were printed out, they'd be like these little thin paperbacks. But these guys are turning this out. So if you are going that route, you got to set different goals of production. One thing too is, so when I'm talking about, like, for me, for the business I write for, I also allow myself if I didn't revise as much, if I didn't edit as much, I could write a lot more, but it wouldn't be at the standard of quality with which my fans are expecting.
Yeah.
You gotta allow yourself that time to perfect it.
Yeah. And
not perfect, but good enough.
No. Yeah. There's no
such thing as perfect.
No. And for me, I know what really helps me is I write something and then there's a period of time in which I just don't even look at it for a while.
Yes.
And I come back, and for me, I have a really short memory when it comes to things. And so when I come back to the stories that I've written and I read them again, I'm reading them with fresh eyes, and it's really easy for me to pick out where there's faults and where there's things. I mean, with Servants of War, I finished that in March. You were doing the draft, the changes to the draft in between a couple projects, right up until September. You turned the draft back over to me, and I did the final edit and added a couple scenes. Stupid romance scene. I added a couple scenes, and tweaked a bunch of stuff basically in September. By the time it was done, it's about 150,000 words, and
that's pretty big.
It's a pretty big novel, but as I was going through it, and I don't know if this is good or bad. I think it's just an observation, but I couldn't tell what part was me and what part was you, really, as I was reading through it, with one character exception.
Because I leave Christoph.
Because you leave Christoph, you left Christoph alone.
The only Christoph changes I made, and he's kind of the sort of a bad guy.
You adjusted some of his motivations quite a bit.
I did his motivations, but as far as his actual personality, I did very little changes.
No, yeah, and I went through and that was where I was doing a lot of tweaks and stuff on my edit.
His motivations mostly changed because between our initial draft and when we did the final draft, we looked more at, from our original outline, what we were lacking in that universe as far as how the universe worked. Mm-hmm. And so that was more, we just adjusted fire strategically.
But the interesting thing is I was going through it, it was very easy for me to not feel attached. Yeah. And so I was just going through, it didn't matter. Like, I've worked with editors before where, I've turned in a story and then there's a really short turnaround and it comes to me, and maybe this is a shortcoming of my own, and that's, I feel like I'm too attached to the words that I've written down. And so I'm loath to change too many of them, and I'm loath to cut too many of them. I'm loath to take the editorial advice that's given to me.
Yeah.
But because there was just enough time in between the draft I gave to you and then the one you returned to me for edit, I didn't care. I was like, okay, well, I'm just I was super merciless about it. And I was just going through and changing things. It didn't matter to me at that point.
One of the things that I recommend for people is take a break between when you finish the rough draft and when you go back and do edits, even if it's a week or two. Because what happens, guys, is your subconscious brain will fill in gaps.
Yeah.
So you're creating something, and even though you didn't actually put this line in your brain, you did because you thought it. And so like your memory has recorded it as actually being in the book. I've done this before where I've like edited stuff out and forgot it. I've done where I've thought I have added stuff in and I had not, because you're too close to the project. So what you need to do is you need to disengage, go do something else for a couple weeks. I like to go write a couple short stories in a different universe is what I like to do. Because we've talked about short story episode before. We've talked about shorts. But I like to go do that because it's a palate cleanser. Then when I come back to the manuscript, I now have this distance, so I can look at it more critically.
Yeah, be a bit more objective with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Objective is a good way to look at it, and also it gives you a chance to get a couple short pieces of fiction out there, also, which to help build up your portfolio and get put some stuff in some anthologies.
Get some Subway money coming in, maybe.
Yeah, and so when you're setting your goals, like I set my goals always.
That's not true, Larry. No one buys Subway. No one should buy
Subway. Yeah, back in the old days. Remember back when Subway was good?
I mean, in ye olden times.
Well, no, back when we worked at Woodbury, it was actually fairly. It was the pre-Jared. Back when the $5 footlongs still had a sufficient amount of food on them, like they had meat. It was before all the scandals and horribleness of Subway.
I feel like I can write that Elrond meme, like I was there 10,000 years ago or whatever it was.
Speak to me of the old magic witch. I was there before Jared. Wasn't bad. Actually, one of the coolest machine gun collections I ever saw was I knew this guy in Alabama who owned like 20 or 30 Subways and franchises, and he had a great machine gun collection. It was fantastic.
Man,
okay, we have totally diverged. I went from Subway to machine guns.
So,
as one does.
Maybe it's not that far apart. All right. So one of the things I think that I hope that's been kind of sort of clear that we've talked about is time, allowing yourself time and understanding how much time you have, not just for writing, but to your point, Larry, and kind of the point that I was trying to make too is just enough space to give yourself a break from that writing so that you can come back and edit it right.
Yeah, so take that into account when you're setting your goals for the year. Also, give yourself a little leeway for failure.
Yeah.
Everybody fails. Every artistic endeavor fails. Every athlete fails. Every businessman fails.
And that's okay.
It's okay. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like that old Michael Jordan commercial where it's like, I missed 8,000 free throws, and he just goes through all his giant list of failures, and he's the GOAT,
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's the same thing for writers. You're going to screw stuff up. You're going to miss deadlines. You're going to fail. What you're going to get judged on is how well do you deal with that? How well do you get back in the saddle? How well do you go and keep producing? Right.
And you got to understand too, I think that there's a lot of ancillary factors that come into play. It's, we've talked before that, when I sit down, when I take PTO from work to go work on other things.
Yeah.
Because I don't take vacations apparently.
Yeah, you take PTO from one job to do another job.
Basically. I'll take a week off and then I'll write for that entire week. Now there's good and there's bad to that. The good is I get crap done. The bad is that I never take breaks.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like my brain is conditioning itself this way to only binge write. But
that's probably a bad habit to get into. You remember the old Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People thing? One of those 7 habits was sharpen the saw.
Yeah.
Because if you're sawing wood nonstop, the saw is going to get dull.
Yes.
So you got to stop once in a while and sharpen the saw.
Yeah.
And that's how your brain is.
Yeah. Well, and the good of this, though, at least I've felt, is that I see how productive I can be in a period of time, in a short period of time, when all I'm doing is dedicating myself, my work time, my 9 to 5, to writing. And I think, okay, I actually accomplish quite a bit during that time when I treat it like it's my day job.
Yeah.
So if I'm ever fortunate enough to be able to do this full time, and let me segue into something really quick, Larry.
I know where this is going.
You know where this is
I do.
going.
This is, yeah.
It turns out there's someone out there who dislikes it when I say that, Larry, did you know that for 99 cents a month, you too can help support Steve and Jack? Help us lift ourselves from the gutters of day jobs into the palaces in the clouds of being self-employed and work from home.
So
But someone doesn't like it when I say this, Larry.
halfway through last season, this started as a running gag when we started doing the supporter thing. And there are
Yes.
perks to being a supporter. And and the joke was I wasn't going to do that because like, I don't care because I'm just doing this for fun.
Mhm.
But then Steve and Jack were both like, dude, shut up, you big snoot. Because we have day jobs still. We love supporters. That's great. And so I was like, oh, yeah, valid point. You know, that was just me being selfish. And so it became kind of a running joke from that point. And apparently someone who sent a letter to Jack was a little bit offended. Like, how dare you? Steve, you should be willing to do this for free
I know.
because you're an artist.
That's right. That's right. I don't need actual bucks. I need exposure bucks, Larry. So
Yeah, you should be thankful.
yeah.
So it's just a joke, guys. Don't, you know, we love you. And, but some people, you know, that when Jack forwarded that email on, I just laughed and it was great.
I vowed to mention it as often as I could.
Yeah, you gotta understand, guys. We're pretty contrarian, you know. Both of us.
I think both of our career at one point we both realized that almost our entire careers in everything had been built purely out of spite.
Purely out of spite. Okay, so on that note, our homework assignment for you guys. I think we're about out of time.
Yep.
So our homework assignment for you guys is, as writers, depending on where you are in your career, come up with some realistic resolutions for yourself for New Year's. If you're starting out, I want you to set some resolutions about what are you going to do this year to get your book done. If you've been doing this a while, I want you to set some, you know how you work, set some realistic production goals of, I want to write 1.5 books this year. I want to write 75% of a book this year, whatever it may be. And then also, to be fair, give yourself a little, 10, 20% envelope there of if life sucks and kicks you when you're down, then you don't beat yourself up. I mean, I love NaNoWriMo for one reason, because it teaches people that they can actually create a whole bunch of art really quick. I also kind of hate it. And then a lot of people think that that's normal.
Yeah.
I do this for a living professionally full time. Have I written 50,000 words in a month? Oh yeah, all the time. I've done it many times.
I mean, I wrote the last half of Servants of War in a week.
Yeah. I mean, so 40,000 words to me in a month is completely normal. And 50,000 is, my record is one day is 16,000 words.
Oh.
That's because it was Son of the Black Sword. The production date.
Oh, that's
for
right. I remember that.
Yeah, the production date for Son of the Black Sword. I thought I had plenty of time,
Yeah.
but it got moved up a couple months.
And then you sent it to me and you're like, I need feedback. I'm like, oh, okay, when? Tomorrow. What?
So yeah, you can do this stuff, but honestly, this is the kind of thing you do once you have some practice. And you don't do that all the time because you do burn out. Very few people keep up that level of production consistently over time. You need to sharpen that saw.
Well, and the other thing too is, especially if you're a beginner, I see a lot of people comment on Facebook these days, and when it comes to stuff that's related to Writer Dojo, I'm actually pretty commenty.
Yeah, you actually
I
respond to a
comment
lot of people.
whatever the word is. For
when
that.
they have questions or comments, you're really good at
I try to
responding
get
them.
on there and respond a little bit, and there's a lot of people asking questions, things writer craft wise and stuff,
Good
and
questions.
that's great, and they're almost always good questions. In fact, I don't think there's ever actually been a bad one. That someone will eventually ask a bad one, and I'm looking forward to that day. But anyway,
I'll do my horrible voice.
that's right. Coming to a podcast near you, maybe next episode. Anyway, I see a lot of people asking questions, and I respond, and a lot of people respond, and everybody's been really helpful, and it's been really great so far. But those questions where they're asking like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'll just highlight one question I saw the other day. And it relates kind of to me because I've done this before. And it was, the person asked, can you do a book where you have alternating points of view where they're in different tenses, first versus third? And I said, well, yeah. I mean,
Residue.
me.
Yeah,
I did that. I did that.
Monster Hunter Alpha.
Alpha did that. That's right. And I bring that up because she made a comment, this person made a comment, further down into the thread saying something like, I just don't know that I have the writing chops to pull that off yet. Well, here's your goal. Here's your homework. I'm just going to say, I think it's Emma. I think her name was Emma.
Yeah.
I said, look, here's your goal. Practice that. You know what? If you don't want to do it in a novel, do it in a novella, do it in a novelette, do it in a short story.
Good New Year's resolution.
Practice the stuff that you want to get better at.
Pick a skill, pick an area that you personally feel weak on, and then get some time in on that.
Yeah.
If you don't like to write a certain kind of scene, go write a short story with that kind of scene.
Mm-hmm.
Steve with romance.
Yeah.
Steve is like, I just, haven't done more. It's like, congratulations, Steve, we need a romance scene. And so Steve had to write the romance scene.
Right. I kind of got into my inner Ann Coulter, not Ann Coulter. That's the true crime artist.
Ann Coulter's the
Sorry, that was Christoph.
The Fox News lady.
My bad. Got my is it Catherine Coulter? There's some romance artist. I got my inner Nora Roberts on.
There you go.
And did my romance scenes.
Yeah. If you don't, and I'm an action guy, so I take action for granted. But if that's something you struggle with, I want you to go write a short story that is action, or go write an action scene, or horror. If you cannot write scary, you want to learn how. Go put yourself out of that box. I think that's a good resolution for the year: is pick something that you personally are not good at, and give a shot at it.
Yeah, and if you think that. If you have other goals, you want to write a book. I mean, that's certainly my goal this year, Larry.
Yeah.
My goal is 1.5 books this year.
That's a great goal, Steve. And honestly, hopefully with the shoulder stuff being done and the job stuff calming down.
Look, I can lift my arm.
Yeah, until here's the thing too, then get on it while you can before life comes back and gets weird again. You never know too, guys, like when you set these goals, you don't know what the future holds. So if you got a downtime and you got a lull, by golly, get the words in while you can, because you don't know what's coming next week.
Right. So I think those are all good goals, Larry. And I hope that you all can see that there's no one way to approach this. We say this all the time. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's like 57 of them. I've done them all. And I've written too. So yeah. So I hope what you can see is, it's good to have your goal to get a book done and get something done, but it's also important to learn new skills and get new tools to help you in that writing process.
Yeah, you were running kind of long, but one thing I saw this year, which is actually really wholesome, it was actually a really nice thing, and it came about from me making fun of George Martin, as many wholesome things do. But what it was just one day, I made a list. I picked the publication date of George Martin's last novel, and I made a list of every single thing I had written and published since that time. And I posted on Facebook, and it was like, 20-something books.
Right.
There was like 24 books and like 50 short stories.
Yeah,
and
tons.
I put that up. But what it is then all the other writers, and I have hundreds of writers on my Facebook friends, and followers, and just hundreds of writers from all different. It became a kind of a wholesome thing because all these other writers took that same arbitrary date and they put the list too. And very few of these writers had ever taken the time to actually look at their entire body of work in a list. And so, of course, some of the bitter people are like, oh, I can't do as much as Larry did, or I can't do as such.
That's
but
okay. Stop comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah, don't do that. But if you ever want to, if you've been doing this a while and you really want to boost your self-esteem, make a list of what you have done. Make a list of the goals that you have reached and the projects you have completed.
Yeah, that list is a lot longer than you think it is.
Yeah, especially when you start putting individual short stories in there.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's padding the stats.
That's padding the stats. Still counts.
Yeah, that's throwing touchdowns in garbage time, Larry.
Heck yeah, still counts.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we're glad to have you with us for 2022, and joining us for this second season of the Writer Dojo, Season 2, Electric Boogaloo. This is Writer Dojo. We're out.
Writer Dojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nybo. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo or by leaving us a 5-star rating or review. To advertise with the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. If you have any questions or comments, email at questions@writerdojo.com.
Fix it in post, Jack.